Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Beltran, an admin in groups Sacred Dancer Trance and Trance Development Support. I am so grateful and very, very honored to have a wonderful medium and teacher, Marc Troy. I'm hoping that you all know him. If you haven't, look him up. But we're so grateful to have him here in the groups sharing his knowledge and experience in areas of trance development. So welcome everybody, Marc Troy. And let me see, I'm just making sure I got everything on and we are good. Marc, I wanted to ask you, or if you could tell me a little bit about yourself and your experience with what you're doing.
So I do mediumship full-time as a professional medium. I've been doing mediumship full-time since about 2014 as my sole profession. The first time I actually did a reading was 2003. So it's been sort of, and I'm sure for a lot of people watching and maybe even with you, Kathy, you know, you kind of come into this and you kind of go away and then you come back. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people like that. But the first time for me to experience the spirit world, I was 3 years old.
Wow.
That's so great. You know, yeah. Well, what happened is that my grandma had just passed. And so, and I'm sure a lot of you that are listening have gone through this where you're grieving, there's a crisis, there's something, and all of a sudden your mediumistic qualities just are there. And for me, that was exactly the case. So my grandma passed, we were in crisis. My house was in a stressful, absolutely chaos. And then, you know, she appeared before me at my father's entrance to his room. And so I went to my dad and described her and said, you know, your mom's here. He's like, no, not having it. But every day I would do that. I would go back and I'd give more evidence. So she taught me mediumship really as a young, I didn't know what a medium was. Yeah. But I was learning because, you know, I didn't see her mouth moving, but I could feel her personality. I could see her. So I was using two clairs already. And the nice thing is it taught me that mediumship and even trance and all this is a natural phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't wake up wanting to be a medium. It just happened. And for a lot of you who are watching, it's the same thing for you. So then it shut down a bit, or I shut down, or I, you know, whatever the case may be, which happens to a lot of us, mm-hmm. especially when we become teenagers. Yeah. And then it came back again when I was about 19, 20. But, you know, for me, it's been open the door, closing it, open the door, closing it, open the door, closing it, and then eventually coming back to it. About 2011, I decided to say, you know, maybe I should explore this and see where it goes. And I decided to do it as a professional along with a normal career in corporate world and then in psychology.
I was going to ask you about that because I know that you are a psychologist as well. And so, but it's amazing with that type of work that you did, knowing the mind, knowing the emotions, knowing that. I'm sure it was a benefit in your mediumship, you know, understanding how people think, you know. Yeah.
Well, for me, you know, I took the job because I wanted to know on a soul level and a spiritual level, how, you know, could I help people who will never thank me? And I didn't know how well it would transfer over to mediumship until now. But, you know, I understand people so much and their life story. Now I can understand the spirit world a whole lot better.
Yes.
I don't really see things as so black and white and good versus evil. Which is incredibly important for mediumship because it's all about trying to just tell the story and not really put yourself in it, and it's surrender. And if you're going to do trance, and you got to surrender.
Yes.
So if you have things in the way of that, like good versus evil or judgment and all these other little things, it's hard to surrender to something like that. So it opened a lot of doors for me for sure, and it does carry over a lot.
Well, you know, I wanted to bring up how you talked about surrender. There's a lot of people that have some fear doing that. They have a fear. They think that trance is where somebody is going to take over your body and possess you and things like that. So having this group and having people come on, sharing their experience and their wisdom, and letting them know that it doesn't have to be scary, that it shouldn't be scary. It should be actually very sacred, connecting to your guides and developing in this area. And on that note, I wanted to bring up your soul to soul, your style. You have the soul mediumship, and this positive mediumship as well. Can you just explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. I have a big influence in my life. Her name's Mavis Patilla. And she's really interested in sort of influencing us to really use the soul aspect of our mediumship. And, I was fortunate enough to meet up with Lillian Suarez, and we just sort of came to the same philosophy at the same time, or same agreement. And we said, why don't we sit down? And we sat there, and we were in our power, and we came up with the course, Positive Mediumship. So really it was our soul mind that we got quiet with. And it's very, if you do any sort of mediumship, there's a little bit of trance in everything. So it's not full blown out, even if you're doing mental mediumship where it's more of the mind and more clairvoyant. There's a certain element of trance in almost all of it. It's just not to the full blown straight. Yes.
Yeah, the two deep, very deep levels of awareness.
I've had other medium friends with no training who have done trance where they had their eyes closed, they got up and they were healing people in audiences.
Wow.
So it's there. But even with that, with your eyes closed and you're walking around, you're able to kind of do that. You still have just control. It's not a possession.
Yes. Yes.
So if it was that good, then we could, then all of us would be in trouble.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I know.
So I think it's religion sometimes that gets in the way of it, or it's just the unknown.
Yeah. No,
but it's not. There's no one that gets possessed in trance. It's just it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I actually had a circle today, and one of a fellow member to both groups, Fiona. I guess she was also your student for the positive mediumship. She was raving about your class, yours and Lillian's class, and how much it really helped her in her mediumship. And again, she's in trance development as well. So, but I just wanted to make sure you put that out there with it in this interview, because I'm not kidding you. She was like talking like 15 minutes straight, about how much it really helped her out. So,
wonderful.
So let me ask you, I think we kind of went over it just a little bit. You actually probably just talked about it. So where would trance development fit in with soul mediumship or positive mediumship? How does that actually?
For me, I think it's really, and I think Lillian would totally agree with this. There's more than just the evidence for mediumship of its purpose. It's great that you can give evidence to people and all that, but if you don't really come with a philosophy or your own truth from it, or you don't really get to touch the spirit world, you're missing so much more there that can enhance not only this world but the next. So for me, when I do trance probably twice a month, maybe once a week, it's hard to say, it depends on the week. But when I do it, I do audio record it, but I'm trancing for philosophy.
Yes.
And I want, so sometimes I'll go to the spirit world and then I'll have a question and I want to see what they have to say. And then I come back and I get quiet and see what my soul has to say. And then other times I'll say, well, what if they don't want to answer my question? Maybe they have something. So that's where I trance. I audio record it and I just let them go and see what they got, because it could be something that I'm missing, or something that in their world or in their life and their story, because they have lives, your guides. We forget this.
Yes.
They have lives. They're people. So although it would be great to think that my spirit guides are just bound to me and chained and they're waiting for me at every command, they have lives too. So what is it they're doing over there? Because I might not even have the right exact question to get that answer out. So it creates a stronger bond. You get more used to mediumship, I think, if you trance. I consider myself more of a platform. Mavis would call me a theater medium. So, there's only so much power you have in a day or a week. I can't trance every day and expect to have enough power, have enough power to do readings and events and demonstrations and all that. So, but I mostly do it for those reasons. And I think having the positive mediumship too, gives the spirit world a little bit more confidence and ease that they can actually meld with you. If you go into trance negatively, what do you think the spirit world's going to think? They're going to be like, I don't know if I can do this with Kathy today.
Yes.
She doesn't have faith in me. She's afraid I'm going to possess, or all these other weird things. They're like, well, and I wonder how many students sit there and go, I haven't gotten anything today. Was it their power or was it their thoughts?
Interesting.
It was their thoughts.
Yeah, it was.
Because your thoughts are the fuel for your power. Nobody really talks about that, but it's the truth.
And you know what I wanted to talk more about sitting in the power and your energy, putting it out to the your guides, the universe. So what are your thoughts on sitting in the power? How do you do it? How often do you do it? What do you recommend about that?
So I think out of everything you do, there's nothing more important than sitting in the power. It's like Lillian loves the chakras. It's the same thing. It's her way of connecting to her divine source. Really, that's what it is. Without that, the spirit world can't use you, and you can't touch them. So there's nothing more important than the power. It's your way of connecting to source or God or that, whatever you want to call it, your soul. You get, your intuitions from there. And it actually allows you to be able to blend more so with the other side and also with this world. But I do it, I try to do it on days where I'm not doing readings. I don't really sit in the power the days I do it. I do it really on the other days, so maybe three times a week. But sometimes it's just sitting in the power. Sometimes I'll have a question, a thought, and I'll put it out there, and I'll just kind of sit in the power with my soul. And then when I come out of it, see how I feel. For a lot of people, like, they'll say, well, should I take this job? Should I not take this job? I wonder how many would actually get the answer if they just sat quietly and felt the soul and have that easement with the conscious mind in harmony with their soul and come out of it going, okay, that's the job I should take. So there's really nothing more important than the power, because without the power, there's no mediumship. There is no mediumship. So it's like, we always think, the other thing about new mediums is that they always say, well, the spirit world told me to do this. Or the spirit world did a good demonstration. The spirit world didn't do a good demonstration. You're the one that did a good demonstration. Yes, it's important to say thank you to them, but you actually touched them, then you're the blessing for them. Yeah. So, Mavis always says, for all of you saying that, you congratulate the spirit world for a good demonstration or a good reading, do you go then to the spirit world and say, I blame you for a bad demonstration? You don't do that, right? Right? Don't blame me, blame the spirit world for a bad reading. We never do that to a client because it's actually your power that's creating that. So if you're going to do anything in trance or in mediumship, if you're going to just say, I have to do one thing, it would be sitting in the power, in my opinion. Whether you want to do it with just the chakras or you just want to sit with your soul, they're both just as equally as good.
Yeah, no, okay, great. I actually wanted to ask you a question. I had a lot of people ask me, or they comment in some of the groups or in the posts, and they bring up an experience they had, and they question whether it was actually trance or just regular mental mediumship, or trance mediumship versus mental mediumship. So they'll be giving a reading, say, and next thing you know, like their hand, all of a sudden their hand starts doing this and it's crazy, and their mind, they almost feel like they step outside and they are viewing it with a different mind, and their hand, they're like, what the heck is going on? Would that be considered a conscious trance mediumship? Or
so I think no matter what style you do, you'll have to a percentage both. Because the way it works is, if you want to describe it as, you receive the information through your superconscious or your higher self, whatever word you want. Then it gets filtered through your subconscious, right? Then even if it's trance, it gets filtered through your conscious mind. There's no avoiding it. Yes. So that example would be more trance than mental, but even if a full blown out trance, you still have a tiny percentage of mental there still. But really mental mediumship, if it's more questioning, or if it's a lot of stop, like, did your grandma have pink shoes? And then there's a stop. It's the stopping of that flow. And it's more of mind mapping where you're trying to figure it out. And versus trance, where it's just, you just go and it's just a flow of info. And, when you see that where their hand raises and they're like, it's funny because the first time me and Lillian double linked in a demonstration, I didn't tell her we were going to do it. So, and she enjoyed it. But, at the end I said, Lillian, were you in the room? I don't feel like I was in the room. And she says, no. So, you'll have that where you're like, wow, was I even in that room when I made the contact? You'll be so into that trance or that mediumship where you're like, I blended so much with the spirit world. I wonder if I was in the spirit world more than I was in this world. So yes, it's a bit of both. But in that specific example, I would say there are more so, on the other side than they were in this one, which is wonderful. I just did a reading yesterday, and it was the same way. I came back, I was like, uh-oh. And like, and I was halfway through the reading, and I was like, and they were happy. They didn't know that. And I was like, oh geez, I totally left. And I came back, and of course it went overtime too. So I was like, whoa. But it'll happen no matter, even if you're a mental medium. I'm sure even mental mediums will say, boy, I don't know, it felt like my hand raised, or boy, it felt like at a moment I wasn't quite in that room.
Yeah. And actually, you know what, that example was actually me. And so it was so strange to actually view it. And I'm like, what is going on? But I knew that a portion of me still there. That was the interesting part. And then knowing with the trance, sometimes people think your eyes have to be completely closed. Well, eventually you're sitting for attunement, and then eventually your eyes start opening, that whole thing. So you get asked that a lot with different people and posting information or asking questions about that. Let me see what else I wanted to ask you.
Good question though.
Yeah. Okay, so we are kind of, I wanted to ask you about your experiences. I know, and you know what, we're just having a conversation here, and we're pretty much touching everything I wrote about, but let's talk about it again. Sure. So when you sit for trance, you actually, it's a personable thing. It's, you with your guides pretty much connecting. And you can do that by yourself. You can do that in a circle. What is your experience? What do you do? I know you said you do that, once every so often, but
yeah. Well, for me, I do kind of, initially it is more of a thought that goes out. But it's, if you don't have the philosophy that you're okay with it, and that it's going to be very difficult. So I'm cool with it. That's step one, at the most important step. Then the step two is, I kind of want them to, get closer. I'm sure a lot of people will say, well, act as if their hands are on your shoulders and that. And I do that process too. And then just like your example where you're like, it's as if my eyes I have different eyes now, and it's not my eyes. So I really do go on, and it's as if we are one now. So it's the physicality of it's that, and I'm like, wow, I am seeing this room, and I am seeing the other room, and then it becomes, I don't remember. And then sometimes I use a CD like Tony Stockwell. Actually, Tony Stockwell was the first medium I found in 2011. That's kind of how I trained myself for mediums. I never really had any classes per se. I would just watch them. And Tony Stockwell was the guy, and he has a wonderful trance meditation that I like. So I like him. He's always been, and that's actually how I found Mavis, because I didn't know any of these people. But he has a wonderful one if anyone ever wants to check it out. And sometimes I'll play that, and I'll let my conscious mind listen to that so it can bring me back a bit. because it's hard to do it on your own without having someone there or a CD.
Mhm.
Because, I'm like, oh my gosh, like what time is it? And then I have to look. I'm like, has 2 hours passed? Has it been 10 minutes? I don't know. Because it feels like I go blank. And then, I re-listen to recording and there's 20 minutes there and the voice is different. The speech pattern is different. It's totally different. So it's always so different too, what they say, and I have probably 3 guides or 3 inspirers that really are good with it or like it or want to say or want to come through. But yeah, the last time I did it, I had a new inspirer that came through. It was a female. So it's been very interesting, to say the least. But, even with the different guides, to me, and this is me, I feel like they're in different levels too, or different worlds or different dimensions, whatever you want to call it. And so I feel that, some of the philosophers and inspirers probably do resonate at a higher frequency, as my guides are a little bit closer to this sort of experience, this world or that. So they have totally different, and it's funny because I'll share this with you. I've never had this before, but I came out of it and, apparently I had asked them, what will they do with their life on the other side? And one of my guides says, well, you're the psychic. Why don't you tell me? And I said, well, that's a strange thing to say to me. And they're like, you don't understand. You know just as much as we do what we're going to do.
Wow.
So I was like, and I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that was deep, man. So that woke me out of it, and I'm like, so that took me like 24 hours just to process that. But it tells you something that there's such a philosophical meaning behind that too. It's like, just because you're in this world, we shouldn't always say, well, you're better or whatever, that your insights could be just as valuable as ours.
Wow. You know what? That is like a crazy experience. And I will tell you that I absolutely love Tony Stockwell's.
Yeah.
I think it's the trance or realm to trance mediumship or something like that. Oh my God. I loved it so much that I found the artist and bought her album behind that music. And that's actually when I actually just sit without having Tony Stockwell on, I'll sit with that music because it just brings me there. But I absolutely love trance philosophy. So that's my area that I really am big on. So you asking that question, that did give me goosebumps because it made me think, oh my God. I mean, you're only stopping yourself from asking the questions, they can't answer you until you ask the question. And so you got to be open-minded and broad with that. And yeah, now I'm going to be sitting for the rest of the day thinking about that one. Oh my goodness.
Wonderful.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I want to make sure I go over everything here. So we talked about your, go ahead and talk and explain, let people know. I want you to plug in your webpage, the things that you're offering right now, because that would be wonderful.
So what I do offer is private one-on-one readings, whether it's intuitive psychic readings or mediumship, either in person or Skype, because I have clients around the world. I have clients in Germany, Australia, Ireland, the UK, India, everywhere. So if you'd like one, you can go to my website, marktroymedium.com. I also do mentoring for intuition development, psychic development, mediumship development. There's times where I do, some people call me a feelings coach, especially for younger, like kids and teens that are, like my expertise is mental health, so that's there. But also I'm finding a lot that were a lot like me growing up, where I had ability, and unfortunately no one around me was like, yeah. So
that's a lot of us, but
it's a lot of us. So what happens is that we either get called ADHD, ADD, or they say, oh, he's just out of control. And I mean, my nickname growing up was Wild Man. I mean, I was out of control. And nobody believes that, but it's like, yes, I was. Believe me, I was. And the nice thing is that somebody like me, or a lot of you light workers out there, you might be able to stop that, where that because psychology is still in the dark ages. It really is.
You know
So
what I was listening to on your group, you have
mhm.
a Facebook group as well. What's the name of your Facebook group?
It's Marc's, I think it's Intuitive Empath Lightworker Mediumship Support
Okay.
group. That's a lot of words, so
It's a lot
sorry,
of
guys.
words, but I'm actually stopped in the middle. I had to take a break, but
Uh-huh.
you were doing a whole live video on mental health. And
Yeah,
so, but yeah, so there's a lot of information on Marc's page group. So if you feel, Marc, at the end of this, once I post this in, if you could put your links to all the different areas of your groups, because people would love to join and learn more from you.
absolutely.
But I'm going to ask you one final question, because I'm going to go off
Sure.
a little off topic. So you
Cool.
brought up being younger, and then also helping other people that are younger with ADD, ADHD, and having the same type of abilities. So I'm going to throw astrology in that mix now. So do you ever come across or pull people's astrology charts just to see if they have decided to come in, youngsters, like, babies, coming in with mediumship abilities, psychic
Mm.
abilities, and, the struggle? I've noticed that. Okay, so I have 2 grandchildren. I pulled their charts the day they were born, and I knew, oh my God, I'm in trouble. 1, I've got a stubborn grandson coming in, but 2, I have 2 grandsons that are going to be like seriously doing this work.
Mm.
And so knowing that information for me I was able to guide their parents or my daughter to recognize the signs and things, I don't know why I just went off on a tangent on astrology. I'm really sorry about that.
Well,
But
that's funny because literally yesterday, one of my clients printed out their natal chart and gave it to me. So
wow.
I think you're picking up on something there. And I was like, so if they are, a lot of the other times I'll look at their aura, and sometimes what I'll see is the spirit world might drop in their kids, and I'll know if they have the power. Not usually. I'll know if they are an empath, a psychic, or medium, and I'll tell the parent. And it happens so many times.
Wow.
And then they'll say, well, give me some evidence to it. And I'll, well, an empath is someone who's like, if you're in an environment, they soak it up like a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are, and again, this was even yesterday for another reading where I had a spirit come in. They said, tell them I'm playing with the daughter, and this is how, and this is the room, and she's seeing me, and this is this, and I'm like, well, she's a medium.
Wow.
She's clairvoyantly at this age seeing and interacting and hearing and feeling. And and they're like, we were wondering. And I'm like, well, and that's such a relief because randomly, especially kids, if they get random stress, anxiety, depression, especially as an empath, if you can identify who it is, it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a little nice little trick to have. Like, if you're upset and then you go, oh, I realize my friend Ricky is actually having a tough time. It should kind of go away because you're identifying it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can kind of let it go at that point. But if you don't, you'll hold on to it and you'll just be miserable. And then, of course, you have your own challenges in your life. So it just gets sort of compounded. But it's I always tell people in my group, especially, it's a free resource, but really, I do think that unfortunately it'll be up to the light workers, which people who do this type of work. I think we will have to be the ones that create a renaissance ahead of psychology. I don't see psychology making progress before I go to the spirit world enough to change things. I just have to be honest. I don't think it will. So I believe if I can get the light workers to kind of blend in and be life coaches
Mm-hmm.
in a way, we can then have the renaissance that way. So there's a responsibility we have.
Yeah. And you know what I read in, I don't know what book, it could have been Life Between Life books, some book, but it talked about, or maybe even Edgar Cayce, in our far future, light workers, healers are going to be mainstream. That's it. And that's what we're going to do. And they're going to scan, body scan and everything. And whether physical, mental, emotional, all of that, spiritual. And God, I just wish, I can't wait for that day, although I'll be in a different person, when that happens.
Yeah, me too.
But
Me
just
too.
the thought of that is going to be beautiful, you know? So,
Yeah.
but man, I am so grateful to you for coming on here and sharing your guidance, your wisdom, your experience. And I am certain that more people are going to be connecting with you and joining your groups. And I'm just so grateful again to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me too, Kathy. It was a pleasure meeting you too
Oh,
when I got to meet
no,
you.
I know I met you in Chicago.
Yes, yes.
That was great. Crazy amount of energy around.
Yes, it was.
So, but I can feel your energy here just from here, and you're amazing. So again, thank you again.
Thank you too.
Your guru. Okay. All right, guys. So please check out this video, and I'm going to hit record. Stop.